Hi, this is the Cat's Library. I'll be your librarian today. This is sort of a part 2 continuation of the last video. This was going to be the big showstopper episode, but then I challenged myself to do a full animation in the last one, and so there is less video footage in this one, but I still think that we'll have a great time. I did also try to make this spooky, since it's supposed to be the Halloween special. Engage speed paint! So for this video, I'm going to go into a bit of the lore. I was thinking about having the deal with this werewolf guy being a mystery until later on, but it made more sense for his backstory coming out to the public to be the inciting incident. The underlying principle of this world is that anywhere where we would have science, they have magic, except maybe in the case of physics. They don't have cold and flu season, they have naturally occurring curses that transmit from person to person. It is partially a wild natural element of the world and partially the underlying code of the universe that a skilled magician can tap into to manipulate matter and occasionally the mind. Only people well versed in neuroscience are legally allowed to manipulate minds because the magicians have to literally reposition the individual neurons in order to do something as simple as to give someone good dreams. Pretty much everyone has the ability to see magic or matter depending on what they want to see, which is how they can see what they're doing without cutting the skull open. They manipulate reality mentally. There are different types of people who can see and manipulate magic better than others, but there is almost always a drawback to this. As of now, the most magically capable species are the elder dragons, followed by this other species that are sort of aesthetically based off of Renaissance paintings of angels with white wings and light powers, and I haven't found a name for. There are no magical species with power over darkness because darkness is the absence of light and not a tangible, energetic thing. All light powers are darkness powers. The elder dragons are gigantic creatures hundreds of feet high, which is probably still hundreds of meters high, and they are linked to the continents of the world that I just realized I didn't make up a name for. I might just call it the world, because we call our planet Earth and our reality instead of Omega 10 or Earth 616 or Middle Earth or anything cool. That might just be an English thing. The elder dragons can fly over the continent that they are linked with, but they can't go too far into the ocean or across another continent because of ancient laws made by their god to prevent wars. Elder dragons are magicians who move natural things around. The god of their world can rewrite the fundamental principles of a thing and create and destroy matter. So the elder dragons see both the matter and magic of reality simultaneously. Unlike, say, a human magician who can mentally only focus on one thing at once, elder dragons see everything at once. One of them could look at a person and see how many strands of hair they have and the magical energy making it grow and how fast it was growing, the type of fabric their clothes were and how old the clothes were to the day, skin cells being born and old ones dying, food digesting in their stomachs, the weight of their body settling around their bones, how hydrated their vocal cords are as they transmit the magical energy to make speech. And the elder dragon would see all of that, as well as about the 20 other people in their line of sight, the trees, the grass, weather, rocks, and assorted food, to the point that it would barely register that the king just wished her a happy birthday. Their other weakness is that they only appear 1 year out of every century. It is one of the great mysteries of the universe where they go for the other 99 years. Do they return to the mystical land from which they came? Or do they burrow under the highest mountain range and hibernate for that time? Or is it some third reason that I'm not going to tell you because of spoilers? The elder dragons made the first werewolf category that I am drawing, which is the wolfmen. The wolfmen are part of a larger category of animals that the elder dragons gave intelligence and semi-humanoid form to as part of a friendly competition with each other in the ancient peacetime before the boundaries were set up. This variety of animal-human hybrids look that way all the time. They think and behave halfway between a human and an animal that they were based off of. A wolfman can only breed with other canid men, so on and so forth. Animal-human hybrids cannot understand abstract thought, They don't understand stories or metaphors. They cannot manipulate any magic at all. They can pick up sarcasm and lies immediately, but they don't understand the purpose behind doing those things. Some of them can draw, but seeing a classical painting does not usually make them feel anything. They don't understand music at all. However, a lot of them have a good sense of direction and wilderness survival skills. They have higher empathy while remaining logical in the face of suffering. They make really good soldiers, doctors, and nurses. A select but notable few are pretty good cooks. A variety of the bird and monkey animal-human hybrids are good at business and math. This dichotomy makes it confusing to determine if the elder dragons made a mistake in making them. Writing this gave me a good idea for the cinematographer for the TV show that the story is about. I didn't know that that's what it's called until I looked up if TV shows have a director of photography. The idea is an eagle person who is incredibly stubborn and wants to prove that animal people can make art. My first instinct is to make a character like that a man, but I'm going to push myself to make a woman. She is very good at portraying movement, but the composition of her shots are sometimes a bit safe. Since they are working on a sitcom, that's perfect for her. She has this young upstart camera woman who's a human, or something similar, and really has this desire to make really great camera work. They butt heads a lot since Eagle Lady has a chip on her shoulder and thinks that everyone is going to try to discourage her from her dreams and takes criticism as an attack, and the upstart kid feels like her own dreams are being repressed. Somehow the constant fighting actually made the cinematography better. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, werewolves. The next variety is a standard werewolf, where the true form, or base form depending on the werewolf's personal philosophy, got a naturally occurring curse from a microscopic magical parasite, which breed in dead victims. They usually have a life cycle that takes them through 3 hosts. The first is a corpse or animal carcass where they lay their eggs. The eggs and larvae send out psychic waves which can only be heard by a large predatory animal to come and eat. When the animal does so, they start dripping foam from their mouths and in most cases have the urge to bite a humanoid. Wolves and dogs have proved the most successful at this because they are more likely to be approached and can act the most believably friendly. Bears and lions tend to set people on edge. The parasites will merge the human with the host animal on the full moon and go after any sort of prey in the woods so that the cycle will repeat again. One reason that humanoids are in the middle of the cycle is that they won't go back to eat whatever it is that they killed. The other reason is that the parasites are intelligent. In some cases, they can completely take over their hosts and hold entire conversations with researchers and have explained that they believe that humanoid creatures are an inferior branch of sapients and deserve to be exterminated. When pressed on the manner of the inferiority with different parasite colonies, there were a variety of different answers. Quite a few said that humanoids were too weak, as their minds could break so easily. It was fun to make something that thought of itself so grand and mighty dance around and kill for the amusement of the parasites. It is incredibly rare that a colony could be reasoned with and let their host live a human life or avoid sapient life on their roots altogether. When the colony can't be reasoned with, then the person is tied down during a full moon and drugged so that the colony can't harm the host and so the host can't harm themselves. The host tends to gain more control of their mind on the full moon the longer that they've been cursed, though the colony also gains power at every other time and usually take the form of intense anxiety that the host is going to lose control and maim someone. The parasites can't take any other level of control except when the moon is full for reasons. Off the top of my head, their moon is the magical equivalent of radioactive, and the parasites shrivel and can barely move or manipulate magic unless they are charged up by the radioactive magical energy. People who are used as hosts are provided with caretakers by some governments of the world, so that they have a support structure if they've killed someone or something. Because loneliness tends to make it harder for them to fight back. They also are provided with anything that they might need, such as meaningful employment, better housing, and in statistically rare cases, good food. Parasite colonies aren't interested in hosts who are already suffering before any sort of infection. If the host has never killed anything to continue the cycle, then their children are at risk for being infected from birth. There are never more than a couple thousand werebeasts in the main country where the story takes place, but a lot of people lie to the government organization in charge of curse relief to try to get the benefits. It is very difficult for genuine articles to apply for aid as a result. Nonprofit relief organizations have to go through a separate government organization to get licensed because sometimes they are led by different parasite colonies which cause vampirism and the like, who are trying to get magical parasites and their hosts to take over the world from the humanoids, as they are completely unaware of the elder dragons. Sometimes they don't even go through the government and just scam people into joining. The character that I'm designing is an actor on a TV show. On the show, he is a werewolf, but the actor is not that type of werewolf that I just described. He is the third type, the Dave or possibly Jeff-looking dude on the end. Since he can change back and forth from that form at will, they shot all the scenes of him as a werewolf pretty easily at first. As the show went on and sensitivities changed, then they hired a hosted werewolf and had to film all the scenes on a full moon with a variety of safety precautions, which negated part of the reason Kalpesh got the role in the first place. The actor is Kalpesh Idlehide, and the character that he plays on the show is Silas Hunter. I was looking for names that mean perfect, and Kalpesh worked out for that. I really wanted this werewolf guy to be a blonde since Ryan has black hair. And so to make these two things work, I'm going to say that Kalpesh is 1/4 the fantasy equivalent of East Indian and was named after his grandfather. I made his skin a bit darker later on in the process. The hair may not be completely natural, but that's getting into the backstory about his specific type of werewolf. He is what the courts have been calling a modified werewolf. There are some cases in medieval times of something similar happening, but as of now, Kalpesh is the only one. I don't know if Dave is canon or if he's just an illustration used in textbooks so that they aren't using Cal's visage without his permission. This is still a pretty new story in their world. What I do know is that there are various kinds of modifications. Ryan uses a modification spell to make his hair defy gravity and make his hair come down when he gets into character. Historically, modification spells were almost always used in warfare and torture. Medicinal modification was always considered a separate category, though there was some overlap since magicians didn't quite understand humanoid anatomy until much later. They didn't understand different blood types, for example. A lot of ancient medicine is discredited in the modern day. Modification spells meant that the magician would change the subject's body or mind in an unnatural manner, while medicinal spells were about returning the subject to the base functional form. About 150 years ago, some scientists of the world invented a more humane way to institutionalize criminals and the clinically insane. By their standards, it was a huge step, but the modern day like to focus on how outdated the practices soon became. One of those outdated practices was that someone invented a calming modification for criminals with anger issues and administered it to hundreds of patients without thoroughly testing to make sure it was safe. In the cases where the patients accepted the modification, their emotions became permanently muted and they couldn't feel anger at all even when they really needed it to defend themselves. Some of them became more efficient killers since anger was never the issue, and clearing their minds pushed them further into not caring about other people. There was a general trend toward the subjects in this category to have trouble empathizing with other people as they slowly forgot what it meant to feel things. Other people rejected the modification and ended up in a permanent blind rage. These people were never released back into society. Luckily, they got tired a lot, which meant providing them with essentials less hazardous than you would think. The third option was people who didn't know whether or not to accept the modification and became what I'm irresponsibly going to call catatonic, even though I don't really know what that is from a medical perspective outside of skimming the Wikipedia page. There were some magicians with an ability to visualize brainwaves the way that the person they were looking at experiences those thoughts, and they could tell that the third variety couldn't decide what to do, because their mind spaces were a war zone. The magicians didn't figure out how to undo the spell until the original group was old or dead. In the modern day, there is a movement of about 50 people who campaign for reparations for those who were part of these experiments. A select few could live for a couple hundred years and were still alive, and the institutions that enacted modification treatment got rich off the practice. The problem is that activism in their world doesn't necessarily prioritize people who've been in the most pain, but causes to have the most publicity, and so they've made little progress in their goal. This guy that I'm drawing's parents saw all of this history and decided to enact a new experiment. They were in the minor cosmetic modification industry, where they were allowed minor spells to change a limited amount of a person's body, like taking off freckles or making someone's nose a different shape. There are a lot of rules and licenses, and the exact spells used need to be on record, and the order of the spells too, if someone wanted to undo them. The more spells on a person, the harder to undo them. The minor cosmetic modification industry could only work with superficial traits that could not kill someone if something went wrong. Like with psychological modification, subjects could reject the spells, which have terrible consequences. People's hair could fall out. They could temporarily gain extra arms, which left the original arm broken when it snaps back to normal. Or in the most extreme cases, vital organs could glitch outside of the subject's bodies. That is why it was only ever used as a form of torture or for minor modifications by trained professionals. Kalpesh's parents were very good at what they did. They never had a problem with any of their patients, and they never had a problem when they were doing modifications on their 5-year-old son. I haven't actually decided how old he was when they started, so I might change it to slightly older. A couple of years before the sitcom came out, Cal was a professional monster hunter, and the most accomplished in that field. Unlike some hunters, he somehow managed to follow all of the rules of a given country about which monsters should be killed or restrained, and he was also kind to any people at risk of rampage. Pretty much everyone seemed to like him, save for a few hyper-competitive fellow hunters and a few people with trust issues. Life was good. That was until the criminal allegations came out. Cal's parents were charged with malpractice for doubling up on spells, but it soon spiraled into child abuse charges. It came out to the public that Cal's parents had given him thousands of spells in the attempt to make a perfect person, mentally and physically. He was a great subject since as a child he loved his parents and was generally a nice person. He wanted to make them proud and was a bit of a doormat who couldn't say no and was highly gullible to new ideas. One of those modifications was the ability to transform into a wolfman for reasons. Even at the trials, he defended his parents' decision. The courts couldn't determine if he was in his right mind when he said that, but he still lost his job. It was a very controversial opinion to have. It was the only controversial opinion he was able to have. It's around then that he was lying low and hiding from the media when he had lunch with an old friend of his, and they came up with this idea for a show together based on Cal's interest in travel from his monster hunting days. A few weeks into pre-production, Cal went into a bar with a couple of friends and was unable to fight back against the people who snuck in weapons because seriously hurting people was against the rules of the establishment and he could not break the rules. That is how he met Ryan. Which brings us up to where the story part of the story would begin if this were a real story. I have no idea if I met the deadline because I'm not rewriting the script to change everything, so yay, I did it! Like, subscribe, comment, share, and watch the animation video I released yesterday. Bye!